And moving to Africa, where China continues to grow its influence, Beijing is reportedly buying political support in exchange for major investments in African countries. And the latest example is that from the East African nation of Djibouti, where a British member of parliament was allegedly deported on allegations of criticizing China. British MP Tim Loughton, who belongs to Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's Conservative Party, says he was deported during a trip to the country due to its close ties to China. Now, Loughton also claims that he was detained for more than 7 hours at the airport and was sent back on the next available flight. He added, and I quote, "This was another example of how the tentacles of the Chinese Communist government extend far and wide, and their malign influence in sensitive parts of Africa is particularly worrying," end quote. Now, the Chinese embassy has called the allegations purely baseless, saying in its attempt to poison China and UK relations. In 2021, Beijing had imposed sanctions on 7 British parliamentarians, including Loughton. This was after they criticized China's human rights abuses against Uyghurs in the Xinjiang region, Tibetans, and those from Hong Kong. Now, China said the allegations were pure lies and disinformation. And now the East African nation of Djibouti shares close ties with China. In fact, the country has received billions of dollars of investments from Beijing, including a new stadium, a hospital, and a $1 billion spaceport. The Chinese government has also built a naval base in Djibouti where it has stationed 2,000 troops. As of now, the Asian giant reportedly holds more than $1.4 billion of Djibouti's debt, which is actually 45% of its GDP. And not just Djibouti, but the whole continent of Africa has for years played an important role for China as a reliable supplier of natural resources. China's cooperation with countries in Africa dates back to the World War II, and Beijing has positioned itself as a spokesperson for developing and underdeveloped countries in Africa, which today are part of the global South. China also continues to grow its interest and influence in Africa through the Belt and Road Initiative and the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. And now that growing interest appears to be centered on expelling voices critical of Beijing. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.